This week's Nelson County Spotlight is brought to you by Hill Distilleries.
My name is Max Shapira, and I'm the second generation of the Shapira family to be involved in our company, Hill Distilleries. All I can say is, of all the years that I've been here, and that's almost 40 years here at this point, this is about the best time to be in the distilled spirits business, specifically the American whiskey trade, as there has been over my entire career. It's really quite exceptional. And really what's happened is that over the course of the last 10 to 15 years, there's been an unbelievable renaissance in the way bourbon has been thought of, not only within the trade, but certainly and most importantly by consumers all around the United States and frankly, all around the world. It wasn't all that many years ago, approximately say 10 or 15 years, when the bourbon category and American whiskeys in general were being consigned to that, as I've so euphemistically say it, to that great whiskey store in the sky. In other words, it wasn't doing well. It looked like it was on the road to, if not extinction, certainly to not have a very prominent place in the distilled spirits list of categories. Vodka was all the rage, rum became all the rage, but over the last 5 and 10 years, it has been an unbelievable renaissance for the American whiskey category, led specifically by bourbon. And what's happened is the rise of the cocktail culture around the United States has led to almost a reinvention of drinks and styles and the way of drinking bourbon that were all basically drinks that were consumed by my father and my grandfather. Today, the most popular drinks today, driven by this cocktail culture, this resurgence of the cocktail culture, are products such as, or drinks such as Old Fashions, Manhattan, just very traditional, very, very much something that had not been in vogue for many years. And this is being consumed by a younger consumer all around the country, all around the world. While here in Kentucky, bourbon has always been very popular, even during this relative period of decline some years ago. Nevertheless, if you went outside the boundaries of the state of Kentucky, you could hardly find bourbon on a menu at a bar or a restaurant, particularly if you got in places like New York City, the Northeast, the upper Midwest. Those were all places where Scotch was all the rage, malt whiskeys were all the rage, vodkas were all the rage. But over the last 5 years, this whole renaissance has seen bourbon to be adopted all around the country. In fact, one of our most important markets, one of our most rapidly growing markets, is a place that you wouldn't have thought that bourbon would have much of a chance. In a sophisticated, stylish market such as the state of New York, bourbon is all the rage today. It's so interesting to find that 10 years ago, when you couldn't have found bourbon on a menu in a major white tablecloth restaurant or bar or lounge or some other venue where products like this would be consumed, today it's not uncommon to find 5 or 10 bourbons on menus with specialty drinks of all types, using all types of flavors encompassing bourbon. Now, the interesting part about all of this is that it hasn't just also been bourbon here in the United States, but this has been adopted around the world. And this trend started, I would say, about 15 years ago in Japan, in the Far East, where bourbon became the rage of the young consumer in that market. And while today it still commands a very important piece of the alcoholic beverage segments in Japan, today that beginning in that country has now spread all around the world. I mean, it's interesting to note, as far away as New Zealand, as far away as Australia, South Africa, Germany, France, the Czech Republic, the United Kingdom, bourbon is amongst the most stylish, if not the most stylish, distilled spirit product that is consumed today. Now, for example, in New Zealand itself, and while that is a small country of about 4 million people, nevertheless, bourbon is the leading selling distilled spirit. Not the leading selling whiskey, but the leading selling distilled spirit of any type. Now, if it could happen there, it could happen anywhere. You know, we, over the course of the last several years, to meet the growing demand, we've expanded our production facilities quite substantially across a broad range of things, whether it's in our distillery, the famous Bernheim distillery, or whether it's here in Bardstown at our bottling facility. A substantial amount of funds have been reinvested into the business in order to meet the demand of what we think is going to be a very viable and a very exciting future for the bourbon trade. But again, this is extended beyond bourbon. It is extended to what we would call subcategories of the American whiskey business, and that would be products such as rye whiskeys, which were so traditional, almost a product that really hardly anybody had ever heard of. But it's heard of today in the most trendiest of bars, the most trendiest of restaurants all around the country. That's just an example of how popular the American whiskey trade has become over the last several years. We believe the future is as bright as it could possibly be.
This week's Nelson County Spotlight has been brought to you by Hill Distilleries.